Hey, what are you doing here today? Oh, this book you're reading looks interesting. Yeah, it's a book about Bukit Chandu. Do you know that Bukit Chandu is also known as opium? Opium? Isn't it a drug? Isn't it illegal in Singapore? Yeah, but Singapore used to be a trading hub for opium.
In the 19th century, Chinese coolies were the backbone of Singapore's labour force. Their job consisted of mainly hard physical labour. These Chinese migrants came to Singapore seeking their fortune but were instead hired as labourers. Smoking opium was a common practice in China. Singapore was established as a free port and the trading of opium became a lucrative business. The colonial government supported the opium trade due to a large amount of revenue made. Chinese migrants brought over the practice of opium smoking to Singapore. This practice was shared with the coolies. The opium trade peaked in 1903. In 1910, a British-owned opium factory was established at the foot of the hill, which is why the hill is known as Bukit Chandu or Opium Hill. The coolies' addiction to opium led to many health problems. Then on, Singapore became very strict on the usage of opium and drugs in general. The history of opium is also rarely talked about due to the stigma of drugs in Singapore.
Oh, so that's how the name Bukit Chandu came about. But why are there so many sculptures of soldiers here?
Well, this is because Bukit Chandu used to be a battleground. This many months of the fiercest and last significant battle happened before the British finally surrendered Singapore to the Japanese in the World War II.
On 8 February 1942, the Japanese first attacked Singapore. During one of the last battles, strange troops were spotted by Lieutenant Adnan advancing uphill from Pepys Road. These troops disguised themselves as Sikh soldiers from the British Indian Army. Their erroneous formation caused Lieutenant Adnan to suspect that it was an ambush from the Japanese. He then ordered his men to fire and succeeded in driving the Japanese off. Two hours later, a counter-attack by the Japanese led to a fierce battle on Opium Hill where the Malayan troops were defeated. Lieutenant Adnan was then hung by his leg and repeatedly bayoneted. Eventually, his mutilated body was burnt. On 15 February 1942, Singapore was surrendered to the Japanese.
So that explains all those soldier statues. I never knew that Bukit Chandu has such a significant history in Singapore. From it being involved in the opium trade, to it being the site of one of the last significant battles in Singapore.
Now shall we go and take a look?
Sure, let's go.
The Malayan troops fought bravely against the Japanese despite having only 10 days of training. The outcome of the war could have turned out differently if the troops were able to hold the Japanese back for 2 more days. However, with a change of outcome, Singapore would not be what it is today.